Hello everybody and welcome to Let's Talk Lottie. To kick things off, we have none other than Hernan himself, creator of Bodymovin. Without Hernan, Lottie would not be possible today. So let's dive right into it. How are you doing, Hernan?
I'm good. And how are you, Sam?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How's your week been?
A lot of work at my regular 9 to 5 job, and then spending some hours every day for Lottie.
Oh, you
Fun. Those hours are fun.
Yeah. So you actually work on Lottie every day then, or?
It depends. It depends on the month. It depends on how much work I have on my regular work. But I usually spend several hours a week. Sometimes on the weekend, sometimes on the week working on Lottie.
Okay, cool. So because has it been about 5 years now since you started the project?
5 years probably, or even a little more. But yeah.
And you're still enjoying working on it?
Yes. So many things happen during these years that it's so many things change all the time that it doesn't feel like it's the same Bodymovin that I used to work 2, 3, 4 years ago when I was by myself doing just pushing things to GitHub, and that's it.
So what's could you tell me about your background in programming? Are you more of like and today as well, if you're more of like a front end or back end programmer or something completely different? So what's sort of been your path to get to where you are today?
I'm more of a front-end programmer. I have been on my current job so long that I'm involved in everything, but mostly involved with the front end. And I got here, I work now on an education tool, and I got here coming from more of a design studio where we did a lot of visual things with a lot of animations, with a lot of media, with a lot of interaction. So that's where I got my first connections with programming, and also with Flash and ActionScript and animations and coding combined with animation. So that's where it comes from.
And what about like animation experience? Do you have like much experience with After Effects and like programs like that?
When I was on the design studio, I was the programmer, but I also did animations in After Effects. That's where I learned both programming and animation tools. I did a lot of Flash as well, animate now. So I would say I'm not a great animator at all. That's not my part. I didn't spend too much time on that, but I got familiar with the tools. I understand how they work. So that's how I can link them to the programming side, where I'm more...
Yeah. Because
more able.
There was I mean, you've done some like really cool code pens. Like I really like the Jake and Finn one with the pancakes and the glitching that one was really cool. The glitching code pen as well.
With the Canva, yeah. So the animations are not mine. The animations are from my wife. She's the one that does. Yeah, she's the talented one, and she does the animations. I just export them and do the interactive part or all the glitching.
Okay. So why what problems were you having that made you think of a solution like Bodymovin, and why did you have to create it in the first place?
Definitely the starting point was because Flash was leaving, suddenly was no longer an option for mobile devices and all that. And more in particular, at that time, again with my wife, we wanted to do some sort of animated interactive book. And that's why we started looking into a way of combining both. We knew that Flash was not a long-term option, so we discarded it. And since I knew a little scripting for After Effects, I knew how it worked, and I really liked After Effects. I think it's a much more powerful tool than Flash. So that's why I started looking into creating an extension that would help us build this animated book. And in the end, it became my full-time hobby to create the exporting animation, and the book is still on the works.
Okay. Well, hopefully one day we'll be able to see it then. But
yeah, there are some pieces. Maybe one day I will share them.
Yeah. And I was wondering actually because the other day I just typed in Bodymovin into YouTube and the song from the Beastie Boys came up. And it was like Bodymovin without the G at the end. So I was wondering if that's where you got the name from, or.
Yeah, it was a wordplay. It was because of the Beastie Boys song, and because the HTML tag is a body, and I was moving the body. I was animating the body of HTML.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I got that name, that clever name, that so clever name of Bodymovin, and it's stuck.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's good. So, one thing, I mean, you sort of touched on it, is because you had experience with After Effects, but when how can I put it? For me, if thinking about that solution where you have a plugin for After Effects and then exporting it to JSON and then reading it in JavaScript and playing an animation, that seems like it seems like a really complicated, like perhaps solution to the problem. So I was wondering if like this whole system was like the first idea you came up with, or if there was other things in mind that you had.
Yeah, so it's a long answer, but maybe the two main points are that I did a lot of research before making the decision, and I found blog posts and things that people had tried into converting After Effects animations, and I remember a couple of them. One was suggesting using a JSON and then having the player, the engine, as a separate file. And it made a lot of sense, because if you wanted multiple animations, you just had a single engine and then all the animations would get loaded, and it would create a format that you could eventually reuse somewhere else and not only on the web. So all that research got me in that direction. But at the same time, my first exporter was exporting for SVG Smile, SMIL, which is the standard animation format that SVGs provide.
Okay.
That it doesn't need any JavaScript. It just plays on the browser, and my first exporter was exporting into that. But right at that time, Chrome announced that they were deprecating Smile. So I said, this is probably not being used too much. The community didn't like it either, so it was people were more betting on web animation format, the web animation API. So I said, I'm gonna put this on hold and work on the JavaScript engine, even if I still think that Smile has a lot of other good ideas behind it that they do make sense in certain scenarios. And just last week, I took back again the code that exported to Smile, and I updated a little, and I did some tests, because now that all the browsers support it, maybe it will come back. We'll see.
Is that your repository? I can't remember what it's called, but it's something like convert or export to SVG-animation or something like that.
Or sort of. That's another one. One. Yeah, there's so many. So that one exports to SVG, but with CSS, no Smile.
Okay.
And the problem is that paths, for now, they are not support. Interpolating paths with CSS is something that is only supported by Chrome. So that one I think is a great idea. When the time comes and every browser supports it, I would bring that repository back again and work on it. But for now, it's very limited.
Okay.
So,
and did you ever have any doubts that even like Bodymovin and get it working on the web was even possible at the time?
Um, no, I think it, when I read the specifications, the basic specifications of SVG, and I realized that you could transform, you could scale, you could change colors, all the basic properties were there. What I did know is that I was going to be able to support everything that After Effects supports, because it's impossible.
Yep.
For real-time rendering, it's even more impossible. But I knew that if I focus on a subset, that subset should work. They are very similar. So I started with a square, then I started rotating a square, and when it worked, it was a success, a cheering day, and I went from there.
And how long after you, I don't know, like did your first publish on GitHub, how long did it take to people start noticing it and for it to getting popular?
Really, really popular. I think it took 2 years, and that was when Airbnb, they added their own parts, their own PCs for iOS and for Android, and they asked me if we could combine all the project into a single project, and that's when Airbnb put their name behind it. That was the curve suddenly was exponentially when it was jumping exponentially. Before that, I think it was starting to get noticed, but it was much more limited. If Airbnb hadn't bring up their parts, it wouldn't be where it is now.
And what was your like first reaction when Airbnb got in contact with you to do that?
It was great. It was great. They told me as well that they were thinking of releasing it open source, so that was great news, because if it was open source, it made a lot of sense. I didn't expect so much popularity for the library. I didn't expect that, but I was imagining that if Airbnb was involved, people would notice, and it happened.
Yeah. And well, that must have been that must be a great experience. But was there any other like companies or organizations that were interested in Bodymovin and what you were making?
At that time or during the whole?
During perhaps like before Airbnb, was there any other companies or anything like that?
Probably yes and no. I know that Facebook, almost at the same time that Airbnb was doing the player, they launched their own After Effects exporter, and it was a different format. And when they launched it, they did a big blog post commenting that they had looked into Lottie, but they needed different things. They needed a simpler format. They needed a more basic thing, so they worked on that basic solution.
Okay.
And so they were interested in the idea. They were not interested in Lottie in particular. It was something very similar. And apart from that, I think, I got some interest by different companies. Some people wanted it to be not open source, but I think the big one, the one that paid more attention, was Airbnb.
Yeah. And was this like your first experience into like open source software, basically?
Yeah, mostly.
Cool.
Yeah, a lot of learning by building and understanding how that world works.
Yeah. When you were building these tools, it was like for your own use cases in the beginning. So did you imagine that these were going to gain the popularity, or that this was like a much needed thing in the community to have animations and make them like optimized basically for web and mobile? Did you realize that this was much needed?
I think I had a lot of conversations with my coworkers at that time, people that were saying no one is interested in this, other people that were saying this makes sense. So I got a lot of different voices. because Flash was on its way out, I knew that there was something that needed to be replaced there because there was nothing at all. So something there should appear. How long it would take and if it was the right time or if I didn't know, and it actually did. It's even beyond Lottie. There's a lot of tools now for animating, for the web, and for a lot of things that are probably with the same ideas that originated Lottie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And what I was curious in, was there ever a big roadblock or something that was like particularly challenging for you to implement when you were developing?
Yeah, definitely. There was one, and I got help because that one was really hard. Converting the After Effects curves, the After Effects interpolating curves,
Yeah.
because they have influence and speed. Converting those into Bezier easing CSS curves, that one was really hard. It took me a lot of time, especially for certain properties that have certain particular things that are not easy. Unfortunately, and I owe that person a dinner sometime when I met him, he helped me out with a crucial item. He helped me out with doing some of the math that was needed, and that was the worst and more difficult roadblock that I got.
So, on the open source side of things, because as you said, it was like your sort of first time into open sourcing. Was there any positive surprises, any negative surprises that comes with it?
It's a lot of work, honestly, answering issues and getting feedback, but especially following issues, asking for people to share their After Effects project, downloading it, opening it, checking the problem, reducing the problem into the smallest piece possible to then debug it and fixing it. That's a lot of work, especially in the first years after Airbnb came into the picture, because there were a lot of requests, a lot of questions, a lot of people that didn't know how it worked. So that time was a lot. Now it's still a lot, but not as much as before. And it's not bad or good. It's just, it comes with doing this open source and maintaining it and following up on it. Besides that, I was surprised that usually people on the issues and on the postings they are nice. I was expecting much more violence or things like being too demanding,
Yeah.
but that didn't happen at all. Sometimes it happens, or sometimes you get requested to solve their WordPress issue that's completely unrelated to Lottie, and you have to say, I cannot do this, and I don't even know how to do it. But besides that, I think really usually people are pretty nice.
Cool. That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
And well, because you said you do it in your spare time, was like going full time working on Lottie not ever a possibility, perhaps with Airbnb or something?
I got some offers, some moments, but I like doing both. I like working where I'm working now. I like what I'm doing there. I learn other things.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe at some point it will happen. I really don't know. For now, I'm good managing both separately and having both things at the same time.
Cool. And is there anything else like outside of Lottie, that like side projects or different another side project perhaps other than Lottie that you're working on, or other like aspects of programming that you're interested in?
In general, yeah, there's a lot that I still have to learn. So I'm interested in keep learning and learning new things that come out related to animation, related to especially front end in general. More side projects, no, because I don't have time. But I do some other things related to Lottie, but not fully related to Lottie. Sometimes I help with the Scotty team.
Mm-hmm.
They are working on the Skia native Lottie player, things like that. But nothing that takes as much as Lottie, because I don't have enough hours in the day.
Yeah. And has there ever been any like sort of use cases of Lottie, or seen perhaps like a Lottie animation where you like never expected to see one?
Yes, I've seen full web pages built with Lottie, like if it was an old Flash website, and that surprised me because it worked pretty well, and they had put a lot of work on it on top of Lottie, with interactions, with detecting areas, hit areas, and animating within the animations, things like that. That's one that really shocked me how well it was built. Then other things that I also found were like integrating Lottie with videos or with dynamic content, so rendering Lottie on top of something else.
Yeah.
And having like 2 layers of information, one more customizable and dynamic and just put the information in a JSON, and then a more render rasterized video in the background that doesn't change. Things like that. I've seen that some, and when I was building Lottie, I was imagining that that made a lot of sense, because it's sort of the idea of having a format and a player that renders in real time, so you can change things in real time.
Yeah. And I was wondering, like, because I was wondering when you're making this, how you noticed, like, how did you notice Lottie files? When like, did you just notice this platform popped up like one day, or because it's surrounded? It's like, well, it's all about Lottie, so I was wondering how you encountered it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think they reached out since almost the beginning. They had already built the platform and it was already online, but they reached out really early, letting me know and letting everyone know on the Airbnb side, on the Airbnb team, that they were building this community and they were building this sharing platform. So I wouldn't say it was out of nowhere, but it still was a good surprise, an interesting surprise to see it.
Cool. And sorry, I was wondering, what would you say, if there was a part of Lottie that you would say was perhaps your like biggest achievement so far, with everything that you've done on it so far? What would you say that would be, do you think?
Do you mean a part?
Or perhaps like something that you're perhaps like the most proud of with what you've done with Bodymovin and Lottie Web?
I think the whole ecosystem around it, I really like where it's now, and it's not only my accomplishment. Definitely, it's accomplishment from everyone that has been involved in this. To see it grow like this, it's fulfilling. Maybe on the player itself, something that was really hard and I like the outcome is everything related to text and being able to animate text and all that. That's a very complex module that is still not even finished, but it has already a lot. And I think those two are the answers I can think of right now.
And how do you work perhaps in terms of like a roadmap for features to implement or things like that?
I check the GitHub requests. I sort them by likes or sort them by messages and see what they request. I also see if they are feasible. Some of them I would even love to implement, but I know they are not. I also try to balance how long it's gonna take with how much sense it makes. There are certain things that I would love to do, but it's difficult to combine them with the rest. I would like to have a WebGL backend to render and not Canvas or SVG, but that's a lot of work and it has a lot of trade-offs, so it's really difficult to assess if it makes sense or not. But that's sort of how we do it. Or I have very specific requests that I know that are easy to do, or they make sense, or that I really enjoy working on them, and I put them on the priority list first.
So if people want features, basically the posting it in GitHub is the best place to do it then?
Yeah, usually yes. But if they send me an email and I like the idea, I also implement it.
Okay. And I was wondering as well, did Webflow, because Webflow have got a pretty good integration with Lottie, I wondered if they ever got in touch with you, or did you just like see one of their adverts one day, or get like surprised by it, or?
Yeah, the second option. I saw this video ad where there was this announcer trying to understand how Bodymovin was pronounced. That it was really fun, but that's how I found out about it. Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah.
But once I saw that they were implementing it, and I got a lot of requests at that time to have a better support for image sequences, to have like 100 PNGs together, and the Lottie was just a player of image sequences, and I have never thought about Lottie like that, like a replacement for a video, where instead of having a video which is difficult to autoplay or difficult to play on mobile, people started using renders from After Effects as image sequences and putting them on Lottie, and Lottie would play them. So it's a strange use case.
Yeah. So one part of Lottie I'm like really interested in is adding like interactivity to Lotties as well. I think that's like having just animations, like really crisp, nicely animated things on websites are nice, but also being able to interact with them is like, I just think it takes it to like the next level. So that's like one part of Lottie that I really enjoy developing.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if there was any sort of what do you think the limitations of Lottie are at the moment, or what sort of big improvements do you have in mind towards Lottie?
There's one, but this one is almost impossible. It would be great to support expressions on all the players, on the iOS and Android and Scotty player, but expressions are really, really difficult. They are easy, not that easy, but they are easier on JavaScript, but on the other platforms are not. If we align all of us and come up with some solution that works for all the platforms, I think expressions would be really powerful. That would be a next level thing, even for interaction, because you can do a lot of things with After Effects sliders, like rotation or color, things that you put out on the effects and then you link properties to them, that if it was available for all the platforms, I think that would make a big difference. And probably the other thing that would also make a big impact is having more tools that export to Lottie. Having more, and not only depend on After Effects. Basically.
Yeah. Would an editor perhaps specific for Lottie animations would be great, I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's not that, an editor that can export to Lottie or as other formats as well.
Yeah, because a big I think especially for people discovering Lotties is they start using lots of different effects in After Effects and then wonder why they don't why they don't end up in the final animation when they put it on the web page or something. So
Yeah, definitely. Now I added a reports option that reports everything that doesn't work
oh, okay.
on the Bodymovin extension, but it's probably difficult to detect everything using a single thing.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And going back to the interactive part, I don't know if you've seen, but there is this Lottie API. It's another separate library that you can use to hook to certain properties, and you can traverse the layer tree, get a property, and then you get a function returned that can dynamically update a value. So you can change it on the fly with the mouse movement and things like that. So those examples, like the glitch example and the chameleon and some others that are on CodePen, they're using that Lottie API library.
Ah, okay. So where's that? Is that on your GitHub?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay.
Not very well documented, but it's there.
Okay. Oh, cool. Thanks for that. Is there anything you'd like to say, perhaps, to Lottie users, to the Lottie community?
Let me think.
No
I think getting feedback is something that's really valuable all the time. That's something that whoever can share. Don't feel there's a lot of places to get in touch, and I usually answer all of them. So a lot of feedback is always useful to keep improving it and to keep understanding how it's being used. And also, if you can share things you've done with Lottie, that's also always really, really, really fulfilling.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So animations or integrations, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what something that I sometimes have a hard time seeing is where people are actually using Lottie animations, like on websites or things like that. It's I don't know. More people need to share what where they're making them, because I find them a lot just like randomly when like having animations on websites, but yeah, you just got to find them.
Yes, exactly. It happens to me exactly the same. Sometimes I open a web page and I say, this looks like Lottie, and I check the console and it is. Sometimes it's not, but a lot of times it is. But it's the only way I can find them, is randomly as well.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Hernan, and it was great talking to you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Sam.